Father's Day celebration. Father's Day is celebrated all over the world on different days. Here in the USA, Canada, countries like Canada, United States, and India, Father's Day is celebrated on the third Sunday of June. Uh, let's hear about the, let's have an interesting discussion on the subject as I explain it to my grandson Alex in Germany, my grandnieces Gia, Tara, Sara in Canada, and my extended family and friends in India, USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries all over the world. So, without much further ado, let's go.
So, imagine for a second that you're out in the countryside, right?
Okay.
And you are pulling this wooden wagon that is just completely loaded down with beer, hiking down a trail.
Sounds like a pretty specific weekend plan.
Right. But then, in another part of the world, on that exact same day, someone else is standing in this high-end jewelry store buying a gold necklace.
Wow. Okay. Bit of a contrast there.
Yeah, exactly. And then somewhere else entirely, you've got a kid sneaking around a school gymnasium with like a handful of pocket change, trying to pull off this covert operation to buy a pair of socks.
Mm-hmm.
The crazy part is all of these people in their own completely unique ways are celebrating the exact same holiday.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. Today, we are looking at the completely shattered, kind of chaotic timeline of Father's Day.
It truly is it's a chronological and cultural free-for-all, honestly.
Yeah.
You have this single core concept, right? Honoring fatherhood. But then it completely fragments into different seasons, different historical contexts, and just wildly different expressions depending on where you happen to be standing on the map.
And that map is precisely what we're exploring today in this deep dive, because we actually have a highly special, very personalized mission for this conversation.
We do.
We are taking a journey across the globe to deliver and unpack a heartfelt message from a man named Yogi Uncle.
Right, Yogi Uncle.
Yeah, he's based in Michigan in the United States, but he has this sprawling, beautiful, just deeply connected global family.
It's an incredible family tree.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about his grandson Alex over in Germany. We've got his grandnieces, Gia, Tara, and Sara in Canada. And then there's this huge extended family scattered across India, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand.
Which really makes his family tree the perfect lens for this whole topic, you know?
That's cool.
Because when you look at the geographic footprint of Yogi Uncle's family, you are basically looking at a living, breathing case study in how cultural transmission works.
Yeah.
For a family like this, Father's Day isn't just like a set date on a calendar. It's a highly localized experience that they all somehow have to navigate together.
Exactly. I mean, think about how you celebrate holidays. You know, you probably expect everyone in your family to text happy holidays on the exact same morning.
Right. There's that synchronization.
Yeah, a universal synchronization, a ticking clock, like New Year's Eve, right? It strikes midnight, and a wave of fireworks just rolls across the time zones in this neat, predictable order.
That's comforting, yeah.
It is comforting. But Yogi Uncle doesn't get that clean synchronization, depending on which branch of his family tree he's talking to. The date shifts, the season shifts, and the entire vibe of the holiday just completely shifts.
Right. And to understand how that fragmentation happened, we really have to start at the source. We have to begin in Yogi Uncle's home base of Michigan, in the United States, where the modern iteration of this holiday actually originated.
Right, the American version, which is celebrated on the third Sunday in June.
Exactly.
And looking at the historical record, it has a very specific, deeply personal origin story, one that starts with a woman named Sonora Smart Dodd.
Yes. So the year is 1909.
Okay.
We are in Spokane, Washington. And Sonora Smart Dodd is sitting in a church. and she is listening to a sermon dedicated to Mother's Day.
Right.
Now, Mother's Day was already gaining massive, cultural traction at this time. It's becoming a phenomenon.
Yeah, people loved it.
They really did. But as Sonora's listening to all this praise for mothers pouring from the pulpit, she feels this profound disconnect because her personal experience of childhood was entirely different.
Her mother had passed away, right?
Exactly, yeah. She and her 5 brothers were raised entirely by their father, William Jackson Smart.
Wow, 6 kids.
6 kids.
Okay.
And he was a Civil War veteran, a farmer, and a single parent in an era where that was exceptionally rare.
And incredibly difficult, I imagine.
Oh, incredibly. So she is sitting there, hearing about the glories of motherhood, and she feels that fathers, specifically her father, who had taken on this immense domestic and emotional burden all alone, that he deserved equal recognition.
That makes total sense. So she decides to do something about it. She goes to the local Spokane Ministerial Association, pitches the idea of a day for fathers, and they actually go for it, right?
They do, yeah.
The first local celebration happens in 1910. But here's the thing that completely baffles me about this.
What's that?
Okay, so Sonora pitches this in 1910. Mother's Day gets officially recognized as a national holiday by President Woodrow Wilson in 1914.
Right. Very quickly.
Yeah. It was like an instant summer blockbuster. Everybody loved it. But Father's Day, it didn't become an official permanent federal holiday until 1972.
Yeah, the delay is, it's staggering when you look at it on paper.
It took over 60 years. It's like Father's Day was this gritty indie sequel stuck in development hell because the studio executives just didn't know how to market the main character.
That's a really good way to put it.
I mean, why did a holiday rooted in such a sweet, undeniable story, a daughter honoring her single dad who raised 6 kids, take over half a century of political maneuvering to get signed into law?
Well, to answer that, we really have to unpack the deep sociological view of gender roles at the time. Like the whole concept of fatherhood at the turn of the 20th century.
Okay, let's get into it.
Mother's Day was an easy sell.
Yeah.
Because it tapped perfectly into the prevailing sentimentality of the Victorian and Edwardian eras.
Right, the whole domestic sphere thing.
Exactly. Women were viewed as the emotional centers of the home, the nurturers, the spiritual guides of the family. So dedicating a day to bring them flowers and write them poetry fits seamlessly into what society already believed about women.
Right. It reinforced the status quo.
Exactly. It didn't challenge anything. Now, consider the father.
Okay.
The early 20th century father was not culturally viewed as an emotional creature. He was the provider. He's the disciplinarian, the stoic breadwinner.
The guy who brings home the bacon and doesn't talk about his feelings.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So the idea of sentimentalizing that role, of handing a gruff Civil War veteran a bouquet of roses and a tear-jerking greeting card, it felt almost contradictory to the entire archetype of masculinity at the time.
So people just didn't know what to do with the day.
Worse than that, actually. Many men actively rejected it.
Really? They pushed back.
Oh, there was a tremendous amount of pushback from men who scoffed at the sentimental appeal. They felt it was, emasculating.
Wow.
And beyond the gender politics, there was a deep, cynical suspicion regarding commercialism.
The greeting card companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Men in the 1910s and 20s often viewed these manufactured holidays as nothing more than transparent gimmicks designed by florists and greeting card syndicates to just empty their wallets.
So they were basically saying, I'm the one making the money, and now you want me to fund a holiday where you buy me a tie I don't even need.
Precisely. They felt they were paying for their own presents.
I mean, I can kind of see the frustration there.
Yeah, it makes sense from their perspective. It really wasn't until the mid-20th century, specifically the post-World War II era, that the needle began to move.
What changed?
Well, you had a generation of men returning from a horrific global conflict, and there was this massive societal push toward domesticity. The concept of the nuclear family became the ultimate American ideal.
Right, the suburbs, the white picket fence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And within that ideal, the perception of fatherhood slowly began to shift. The father wasn't just the distant guy who brought home a paycheck anymore.
Right.
There was an emerging expectation for him to be an involved, emotionally present figure in the household.
Which eventually paves the way for President Lyndon B. Johnson to issue a proclamation in 1966, right, supporting the third Sunday in June.
Yes.
And then Richard Nixon finally signs it into permanent law in 1972.
Exactly.
So it took an entire cultural revolution, like a total shift in the very definition of masculinity, just to get fathers a Sunday on the calendar.
It really did.
And speaking of how we define things, there is a tiny almost invisible detail about this American holiday that I find utterly fascinating.
Oh, the grammar.
The grammar, yes.
The punctuation debate. This is a brilliant little window into the philosophy of the holiday.
Right, because think about how we spell Father's Day. It is spelled with an apostrophe before the S, making it a singular possessive.
Right, not plural.
Exactly. It is not Father's Day with the apostrophe at the end, belonging to all the fathers in the plural.
Yes, and that grammatical choice was actually a direct, intentional copy of the precedent set by Anna Jarvis, the woman who founded Mother's Day.
Wait, really? She dictated the punctuation?
She did. Anna Jarvis was fiercely protective of her holiday's intent. In 1912, she actually trademarked this specific phrase, second Sunday in May, Mother's Day.
Wow, she trademarked it.
She did, and she was adamant, absolutely uncompromising, that mothers had to be a singular possessive.
Why was she so militant about an apostrophe? Like, what does it matter?
It matters because of the philosophical core of the celebration. She stated explicitly that the day was designed for each individual family to honor its own mother.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was not meant to be a plural possessive commemorating all the mothers in the world as some vague collective concept. It was intimate. It was supposed to be about your mother.
That's actually really beautiful.
It is. And Father's Day simply absorbed that exact same grammatical and philosophical framework. It's about your dad. It's personal, not collective.
So when Yogi Uncle is firing up the barbecue in Michigan on the third Sunday in June, he is leaning into this deeply personal, singular American tradition.
Yes, exactly.
A tradition that took a cultural redefinition of manhood to even exist.
Right.
He is reflecting on his singular role as a father, a grandfather, and an uncle to his specific family.
Right.
And here is where the story takes a massive left turn. As Yogi Uncle sends his love across the Atlantic to his grandson Alex in Germany, the entire framework we just built completely shatters.
It is a profound, almost jarring shift.
The date, the sentimentality, the focus on the nuclear family, it's all gone.
Yeah, we are moving from the backyard barbecues and sentimental greeting cards of the American June to the highly unique, very boisterous traditions of Germany in May.
Okay, let's dive into Alex's world. If I go to Germany and ask someone what they were doing for Father's Day, I'm probably going to get a confused look.
Very likely.
Because they don't even really call it that.
In the American sense, no, they don't. In Germany, the day is known as Vatertag, but it is also very frequently called Männertag, which translates to Men's Day, or Herrentag, which is Gentleman's Day.
Gentleman's Day, I like that.
Yeah, and it absolutely does not happen on a random Sunday in June. The German celebration is rigidly tethered to the Christian religious calendar.
Which is interesting because the American one was completely secular from the jump.
Exactly. In Germany, Vatertag always falls on Ascension Day.
Ascension Day, okay.
Yeah. That is a Thursday, exactly 40 days after Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And because Ascension Day is a major religious observance, it is a federal public holiday across all of Germany. Everyone is off work.
Oh, nice.
But the fascinating part is how a deeply solemn religious holiday morphed into what Alex might see out his window today. It is a masterclass in how agrarian rituals evolve when a society urbanizes.
I am so ready for this because you mentioned wooden wagons full of beer earlier. How on earth did we get from a church holiday to Men's Day?
Okay, we have to trace the roots back to the 18th century. Originally, on Ascension Day, rural German communities would hold Christian processions.
Okay.
They would walk out to the farmlands, walking the perimeter of their fields to pray for a good harvest. It was a vital agrarian ritual.
That makes sense.
But during these processions, a very peculiar tradition developed. The men of the village would be seated in wooden carts and literally carried or pulled to the central village plaza.
Okay, I'm picturing guys in wooden farm carts. Still seems relatively tame. Where does the beer come in?
Well, hold on, it gets better. Once they arrived at the village plaza, the town mayor would be waiting, and he would award a prize to the man who had fathered the most children in the village.
A prize? See, I was expecting a crown or maybe like a nice plaque.
Yep.
But the sources say the prize was a giant piece of ham.
A giant piece of ham.
I'm still stuck on the ham. That feels like a massive leap to me.
It does, right.
They went from solemnly walking around fields, praying for wheat, to parading guys in wooden carts to win a ceremonial ham for being the most prolific father. What is the connection there?
It's all about fertility.
Oh.
Yeah. In an 18th century agrarian society, the fertility of the land and the fertility of the family were inextricably linked. Yeah. You needed a large family to work the large fields.
Right. More kids means more farm hands.
Exactly. So honoring the man with the most children with a prize cut of meat was a way of celebrating the physical vitality that kept the entire community alive.
Okay, that actually makes sociological sense. But Alex is living in modern Germany. He isn't watching guys in wooden carts competing for ham, right?
No, thankfully not.
What he is seeing sounds more like a nationwide daytime bachelor party. So how does the ham ritual evolve into what they do today?
It is the direct byproduct of the Industrial Revolution and urbanization. By the late 19th century, particularly in massive urban centers like Berlin, the religious and agrarian components began to fade.
People moving to the cities.
Right. People were moving away from the farms and into factories. So walking out to the fields to pray for crops suddenly lost its immediate practical relevance for city dwellers.
But they had a federal day off work, and they liked the tradition of hanging out together.
Exactly. The religious shell fell away, but the social core remained. The men kept the tradition of the excursion. Groups of men started organizing walking tours into the countryside surrounding the cities.
Okay, I see where this is going.
And while the ceremonial ham faded away, they brought their own food, traditional regional dishes known as Hausmannskost, and increasingly large quantities of beer and wine.
Which brings us to the centerpiece of the modern German Vatertag, which is the Bullerwagen.
Yes, the Bollerwagen. These are small, hand-pulled wooden wagons.
Like the ones kids play with.
Similar, but heavily reinforced. If you are in Germany on Ascension Day, particularly in Eastern Germany where the tradition is incredibly robust, you will see groups of males embarking on long hiking or biking tours. And they are pulling these Bollerwagen, which are completely loaded down with alcohol and food.
And it's not just fathers, right? That's why it's called Men's Day.
Correct. It is a day for male bonding across generations. You will see young men in their 20s walking alongside grandfathers.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It is. The only group typically excluded are pre-teenage boys. It is very much a rite of passage and a celebration of male camaraderie.
So while Yogi Uncle is having a quiet family reflection in Michigan, Alex is out there, or at least observing guys out there, hiking through the German countryside, pulling wagons full of booze, eating sausages, and just having a massive party.
Yes.
It's almost jarring how different it is.
And it is not a quiet party either.
Yeah.
It is widely recognized across Germany as a day of incredibly heavy drinking.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the Federal Statistical Office of Germany releases data on this, and the statistics are quite sobering, no pun intended. On Vatertag, alcohol-related traffic accidents actually triple compared to an average day.
Triple.
Triple.
That is an astonishing spike. And wait, Ascension Day is always on a Thursday?
Yes.
If the entire male population is out hiking and drinking heavily on a Thursday, what happens on Friday? Do they just roll into the office with massive hangovers?
Realistically, you get a very, very quiet Friday across the country.
I bet.
A massive percentage of men take that Friday off work as a bridge day to the weekend. In fact, many schools simply close on that Friday because they know attendance will be abysmal.
That is hilarious.
It effectively creates a 4-day-long weekend. Some use it for a short family vacation, but many use it simply for recovery from the Bollerwagen tour.
It is a totally different universe. You have the same core spark a day focused on men, and it travels through completely different historical machinery to arrive at two completely different endpoints.
Exactly.
But as fascinating as Germany is, we have to look at how traditions travel when they don't have centuries of agrarian rituals attached to them.
Right.
Because Germany's traditions stayed isolated, it's highly specific to them, but the American version of Father's Day, that exported itself globally.
It did, and looking at how that American export landed in Canada, the UK, and India reveals just as much about those cultures as it does about the holiday itself.
Let's shift our focus to the rest of Yogi Uncle's family. We have his grandnieces, Gia, Tara, and Sara living in Canada.
Yes.
For them, we are moving back to the American timeline. They share that third Sunday in June. And looking at the cultural landscape there, Canada's adoption of the holiday seems to have been relatively frictionless.
It was incredibly seamless. Canada's close geographic proximity, combined with a heavily shared media and advertising landscape of the United States, meant that as Father's Day gained traction south of the border in the mid-20th century, it naturally spilled over.
Right. So Gia, Tara, and Sara are likely celebrating in a way very familiar to Yogi Uncle. Intimate family gatherings, maybe a nice brunch, giving gifts, spending quality time.
It's heavily focused on the domestic sphere.
But when we cross the Atlantic to the United Kingdom, where Yogi Uncle has extended family, the story of that American export gets significantly more complicated.
It does. The UK also observes the holiday on the third Sunday in June, but it does not have the deep organic historical roots there that it developed in the States.
Right.
According to folklorist Steve Roud in his work The English Year, Father's Day didn't truly enter British popular culture until sometime after the Second World War.
Okay.
And crucially, the historical record notes that it was introduced not without opposition.
That opposition is what I want to dig into, because we saw men in 1910s America resist the holiday because of, stoicism.
Right.
Why was the UK pushing back against it in the 1950s?
To understand the British pushback, you really have to contrast it with Mother's Day, or more accurately, Mothering Sunday in the UK.
Right, because they're not the same thing. Can you explain Mothering Sunday? Because I think a lot of people assume it's just the British name for the American Mother's Day.
That is a very common misconception, actually. Mothering Sunday has centuries of deep-seated religious history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it falls on the fourth Sunday of Lent, exactly 3 weeks before Easter Sunday. Originally, it was a day when Christians would return to their mother church, like the main church or cathedral of the area where they were baptized.
Okay.
Over the centuries, this ecclesiastical tradition naturally blended into a day for honoring human mothers. Servants were traditionally given the day off to travel home and visit their families, and they would pick wildflowers along the way to give to their mothers.
Okay, so Mothering Sunday has this massive, undeniable cultural and theological weight behind it. It feels authentic to the British historical experience.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with Father's Day arriving post-WWII. It had no theological head start. It had no historical precedent in British society.
It was just a new thing on the calendar.
Right. It arrived fully formed as an American import. And in post-WWII Europe, there was a palpable cultural anxiety regarding the Americanization of culture and the creeping influence of blatant commercialism.
I can totally see that. You have a country rebuilding from the Blitz, still dealing with rationing in some areas, and suddenly greeting card companies are trying to mandate a new Sunday where you're supposed to buy Dad a new pipe.
Exactly. It felt cynical to them. It felt transparently commercial. It lacked the soulful resonance of Mothering Sunday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The British public viewed it as a retailer's invention. It took decades of gradual cultural assimilation for it to shed that stigma of being a cheap commercial import and become the widely accepted, genuine family day it is considered now.
That transition from commercial skepticism to acceptance perfectly tees up Yogi Uncle's extended family living in India.
It really does.
Because if the UK viewed Father's Day as a suspicious commercial import after WWII, India's relationship with the holiday is a textbook example of modern, hyper-speed cultural importation fueled by the internet.
Absolutely. The contrast is stark. There is absolutely no original indigenous custom of a specific Father's Day in traditional Indian culture.
Not at all.
None. The entire concept is a Western import.
And it's a very recent phenomenon, right? This isn't something that arrived in the 1950s. This is largely driven by millennials and Gen Z.
Yes.
If I'm looking at the timeline, how on earth did a singular Western holiday break through the massive cultural barrier of traditional Indian family dynamics?
The mechanism of transmission is entirely digital. Social media acts as the ultimate global cultural equalizer.
Instagram strikes again.
Exactly. You have young people in India, millennials and Gen Z living on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. When they log on during the third Sunday in June, what do they see?
They see everyone else posting.
Right. They see their peers in the United States, in the UK, in Canada, posting photos with their fathers, writing these long emotional captions expressing gratitude.
And there is a natural human inclination to want to participate in that global digital moment. Nobody wants to be left out of the timeline.
Exactly. It creates a mimetic desire. They want to engage in that same public expression of affection. And so the younger generation essentially imported the holiday from their smartphones right into their living rooms.
But the way it's celebrated in India isn't uniform, right? There is a massive divide in how it's received.
Oh, there's a profound urban-rural divide. The observance of Father's Day in India is heavily, almost exclusively concentrated in major metropolitan areas.
Like where?
We are talking about massive urban centers like Mumbai, New Delhi, Chennai, Bengaluru, Pune, and Kolkata. In these cities, the commercial engine has completely caught up with the social media trend.
So what does it look like in Mumbai or New Delhi?
It is a booming commercial event. Children are buying greeting cards, the latest electronic gadgets, high-end shirts, and even gold necklaces for their fathers.
Gold necklaces, wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It has also become a massive boon for the restaurant and hospitality industry. Families are going out for elaborate dinners or utilizing food delivery apps to order massive feasts at home. The urban celebration is highly commodified and highly visible.
Okay, but what happens when you step outside of those major tech hubs and metropolitan bubbles? How does traditional India view this imported Sunday?
In many traditional rural or less westernized families, the concept is met with complete indifference or even mild annoyance.
Annoyance? Really? Why?
Because it creates a sociological tension. There is a deeply rooted prevailing cultural sentiment in India regarding filial piety. The expectation is continuous, unending reverence for one's elders.
Well, okay, I see.
You will often hear parents themselves express the sentiment that every day is Parents' Day, so you should love and respect your parents every day.
Oh, wow. So from their perspective, taking one specific Sunday out of the year to buy a gift and say thank you actually feels like a demotion.
It feels reductive.
Yeah.
The idea of confining respect and gratitude to a single commercially mandated Sunday feels antithetical to the baseline of continuous reverence expected in traditional family structures. Why limit it to a 24-hour window when it is supposed to be the foundational fabric of your daily behavior?
That is a brilliant way to look at it. It's the friction between a continuous cultural state of being versus a singular commodified Western event.
Exactly.
But even within India, it gets more complex because there's a religious twist in certain regions that completely bypasses the social media aspect.
Yes, the adaptation of the holiday isn't just commercial, it is also religious. What is fascinating is how this imported secular holiday has been fully embraced and adapted by Christian communities within India.
Where is this happening?
Primarily in the northeastern state of Nagaland, which has a significant Christian population, and down south in the state of Kerala. In these regions, Father's Day is a major event. But it is not about buying gold necklaces or posting on Instagram. It is celebrated with special Sunday church services. Entire masses are dedicated to the concept of fatherhood, and specific prayers are held for the well-being and guidance of fathers in the community.
It is incredible. Think about Yogi Uncle's family network right now.
It's so diverse.
On the exact same Sunday in June, one part of his family might be in New Delhi buying a smartphone to celebrate, while another part of the extended family might be in a church in Kerala attending a solemn mass.
Right.
And all of this is happening while Gia, Tara, and Sara are doing a family brunch in Canada, and Alex is recovering from a bowler wagon tour in Germany that happened a month prior.
The sheer diversity of expression is staggering.
And we haven't even finished the map.
No, we haven't.
Because for the final branch of Yogi Uncle's family, the relatives living in U.S.A., the entire calendar completely breaks down. We have to change the timeline, and we have to change the seasons.
Yes, we are crossing the equator to the Southern Hemisphere, to Australia and New Zealand, where the temporal landscape of Father's Day requires a complete reset.
Right. They do not celebrate in June. They celebrate on the first Sunday in September.
Exactly.
Which, in the Southern Hemisphere, marks the very beginning of the spring season. Now, we talked about how the UK resisted the holiday after WWII because they thought it was too commercial.
Yes.
But the historical resistance in Australia back in the 1910s and 1920s was on a completely different level. It wasn't just skepticism, it was ideological warfare.
The pushback in early 20th century Australia was fierce, highly vocal, and deeply rooted in the gender politics of the era.
What were they saying?
Well, when the concept of Father's Day was first introduced to Australia, and it was originally introduced in June, attempting to match the American date, it was outright rejected by a large portion of the population.
The sources mention that newspapers were literally printing satirical poems mocking the holiday.
They were.
That is active, creative, mobilized opposition. Why were they so threatened by it?
The critics in Australia leveled two main arguments against the holiday. The first was the standard complaint that it was simply unnecessary and contrived.
Sure.
But the second argument is the one that reveals the deep sociological anxieties of the time. They claimed that dedicating a day to pampering a father actually actively undermined his assumed supremacy as the unquestioned head of the household.
I need us to unpack that word. Supremacy.
Yes, supremacy.
Undermined his supremacy. How does giving a man a nice card or a pair of slippers threaten his supremacy?
We have to get into the psychology of patriarchal authority. In the rigid family structures of the 1910s and 1920s, a father's authority was supposed to be absolute, stoic, and unyielding.
Right.
He was not a friend. He was the lawgiver.
The don't bring me flowers, I am the law 5.
Exactly. To the men of that era, receiving sentimental gifts, being treated with the soft, emotional coddling that was typically reserved for Mother's Day, felt deeply emasculating. It reduced their authoritative stature. If you are the absolute monarch of your household, accepting a knitted tie and a poem from your children suddenly turns you into just a vulnerable human being who desires affection.
That is wild.
That loss of unapproachable status, that softening of the patriarch, was genuinely terrifying to the male ego of the time.
By giving him a gift, you are essentially humanizing him. And by humanizing him, you strip away his terrifying mystique.
Precisely.
So if the resistance was that deep and that tied to male identity, how on earth did the holiday eventually catch on? Because obviously, Yogi Uncle's family in Australia is celebrating it today.
The turning point is fascinating because it required stripping the holiday of its commercialism and tying it instead to civic duty and charity.
How did they do that?
The shift began in the mid-1920s. In June 1925, a prominent woman from Sydney named Janet Hayden, who, interestingly enough, had also been a major advocate for establishing Mother's Day celebrations in Australia, decided to take a different approach.
What did she do?
She organized a massive charity drive. But she didn't focus on the strong, unyielding patriarchs at home. She focused on the vulnerable.
Oh, that's smart.
She collected donations from local businesses and citizens to bring cheer and gifts to elderly, lonely, and destitute men living in nursing homes, state asylums, and charity facilities.
That completely changes the dynamic. She grounded it in community service.
Exactly.
You aren't threatening a man's supremacy. You are performing an act of civic compassion for the forgotten fathers of society.
It was a brilliant pivot. It made the concept of honoring fathers socially acceptable by framing it as charity. But even with Janet Hayden's success, the June date simply never stuck in the Australian consciousness. It felt arbitrary.
So when did they move it to September?
It wasn't until the 1930s that the holiday gained true, widespread popular traction, and that is precisely when the date officially shifted to the first Sunday in September.
Why September, though?
The reasoning was largely practical and seasonal. September is the onset of spring in the Southern Hemisphere. The weather is warming up, people want to be outdoors, and it provided a much-needed retail boost in a quarter of the year that lacked major holidays.
And New Zealand followed a similar trajectory.
Yes, very similar. New Zealand's first officially recorded observance was actually a dedicated church service at St. Matthew's Church in Auckland in 1929.
Oh, started in a church there, too.
Right. The commercial advertising sector picked up on the concept the very next year in 1930. By 1935, as much of Australia was firmly adopting the September date, New Zealand followed suit. Local businesses and civic organizations like the Salvation Army holding special services cemented the September tradition by the late 1930s.
Okay, so we've moved past the satirical poems and the fear of losing patriarchal supremacy.
Safe to say.
What does a modern September Father's Day look like for Yogi Uncle's family living in Australia and New Zealand today?
Because it aligns with the arrival of spring, the celebration is incredibly outdoor-focused. You see a massive emphasis on family barbecues, picnics in the park, taking Dad out for lunch, or going on outdoor excursions.
It sounds lovely.
It is. It is very much a celebration of the changing seasons, as much as it is a celebration of fatherhood.
And there is a real community aspect to it as well, right?
A very strong one. Unlike the purely domestic focus in North America, Australia maintains some of that civic duty from the Janet Hayden days.
Oh, they kept that alive.
They did. For instance, the YMCA Victoria holds massive annual awards for the local community Father of the Year, recognizing men across dozens of municipalities for their contributions to their communities, not just their own children.
I love that broader definition of fatherhood, but honestly, my absolute favorite detail about how Australia celebrates involves the public school system. The gift stalls.
It is a universally cherished tradition down there.
It is so brilliant. For anyone who hasn't experienced this, in the days leading up to Father's Day in September, Australian public schools will set up these little makeshift stalls, usually in the school gymnasium or the library.
Yep.
And they are filled with these incredibly inexpensive novelty presents. We are talking coffee mugs with bad jokes on them, weirdly patterned socks, little tape measures, keychains. Everything is just a few dollars.
And the mechanism of how it works is crucial to why it is so beloved.
Right, because the kids get to bring in their own pocket change, and they get to go into the stall without their parents to buy a gift for their dads, granddads, or carers.
Exactly.
It is like they get to play secret agent. They are executing this covert operation, using their own money, making their own choices, and feeling completely independent.
Psychologically, it is a masterstroke.
Really? How so?
Well, in many other countries, the logistical burden of Father's Day falls on the mother. The mother has to go buy a gift, hand it to the toddler, and say, "Here, give this to Dad." The child has no agency in the transaction.
That's so true.
The Australian school stall removes that hurdle, gives the child complete agency. Even if the gift is just a wildly ugly pair of socks, the act of giving becomes deeply personal and authentic because the child chose it themselves.
It is a wonderful tradition, and it really highlights the massive spectrum we have just walked through today. Let's look at the sheer scale of the map we have just drawn for Yogi Uncle's family.
Let's do it.
You have Yogi Uncle in Michigan, likely having a barbecue in June, rooted in a history that took 60 years of political fighting to secure.
Right.
You have Alex in Germany, surrounded by a culture pulling buller wagon full of beer in May, a tradition born from 18th century agrarian ham-winning contests.
You still have my favorite detail.
Right. You have Gia, Tara, and Sara in Canada enjoying a seamless June family gathering. You have the extended family in the UK navigating a holiday that their grandparents might have viewed as a cheap commercial trick.
Yep.
You have relatives in India caught between a massive urban social media boom and traditional rural values.
It's so diverse.
And then finally, you have the family in Australia and New Zealand waiting all the way until September to fire up the barbecue and open a pair of socks bought at a school stall.
It's incredible.
Which brings us to the ultimate core question of Yogi Uncle's message. How does a global family, fractured by thousands of miles, completely incompatible time zones, and entirely different seasonal calendars actually function? How do they celebrate together?
This is the reality for millions of expat and immigrant families today. The logistics of staying connected across these borders are staggering. It requires a tremendous amount of intentionality. You cannot rely on passive connection.
Right, you can't just bump into each other in the kitchen.
No. Not at all.
You are dealing with scheduling video calls to try and share a meal across completely incompatible time zones. One person is eating breakfast while the other is having a late-night snack.
Right.
You are navigating international banking apps to send money or trying to coordinate digital gifts across borders.
And what is truly interesting is that within this hyper-digital age, there is a noted resurgence in the lost art of the physical artifact.
Like actual mail.
Yes. When you are separated by oceans, an email or a WhatsApp message is efficient, but it is ephemeral.
True.
Mailing a handwritten letter or sending a physical printed photograph through the international post carries immense emotional weight. The physical object becomes a tangible proxy for the person.
Does the geographic distance and the fact that their holidays don't even line up on the calendar force families like Yogi Uncles to be more intentional about their love?
Absolutely. When you share a zip code, presence is often taken for granted. You assume connection because of proximity.
That makes sense.
But when you are scattered globally, presence has to be actively manufactured through sustained effort. But if we analyze the psychological impact of these diverse global dates, we actually uncover a hidden benefit.
A benefit? Having your holiday scattered across 3 different months sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Logistically, yes, it is. But emotionally, it is an advantage. For a family like Yogi Uncles, the fact that Father's Day is shattered across May, June, and September creates multiple distinct opportunities for connection. Instead of a single, highly pressurized 24-hour window where everyone is scrambling to call at once, the holiday morphs into a rolling, months-long season of family appreciation.
A rolling season. I love that concept.
Think about how it functions. In May, the entire global network can reach out to Alex in Germany. They can ask him about Ascension Day, check in on his life, and make him the focal point.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Then in June, the network shifts its focus. The calls route toward North America to Yogi Uncle and the nieces, and to the UK and India.
Like a spotlight moving across the globe.
Exactly. And just when you think the season is over, September arrives, and the entire family's attention turns to Oceania. It weaves a continuous, unbreakable thread of communication throughout the entire calendar year.
It means Yogi Uncle gets to be celebrated or gets to celebrate his family members multiple times a year. It acts as a constant recurring heartbeat, reminding everyone of the network they belong to.
Precisely. And within those specific touch points, the most vital element isn't just saying the words, Happy Father's Day.
What is it?
The vital element is the sharing of childhood memories and the reaffirmation of family traditions. Maintaining a sense of shared identity across continents requires active, continuous storytelling.
Right.
When Yogi Uncle calls Alex, or when the nieces in Canada video chat with the extended family in India, they are actively resisting the drift of geography. They're reaffirming their shared history.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We have taken this incredible journey today.
We really have.
We started with Sonora Smart Dodd's singular vision in a Washington state church, fighting to honor a Civil War veteran. We unpacked the complex sociology of early 20th century Stoicism and the 60-year battle for a calendar date.
Yeah.
We hiked the trails of Germany with Alex, tracing the bizarre evolution from agrarian fertility hams to the modern bowler wagon.
We examined the friction of cultural transmission, how the UK initially resisted the commercialism, how India's youth embraced it through the lens of social media, and how early Australian men viewed it as a direct threat to their patriarchal authority.
We started this deep dive by talking about how the Father's Day calendar is completely shattered, how it lacks that universal ticking clock synchronization that we crave in our holidays.
Right.
And it is true, it is a chronological mess. The dates don't line up, the traditions contradict each other, the seasons are backwards. But maybe that chaos is exactly the point.
In what sense?
Well, what if the true measure of a father's influence isn't found in a specific date on the calendar? It isn't found in whether you give him a giant piece of ham, a gold necklace, or a pair of socks from a school gym.
Okay.
What if the true measure of a father and of a family patriarch like Yogi Uncle is his ability to cast a net of love and connection so incredibly wide that it binds a family together across multiple continents, conflicting time zones, and vastly different cultures?
That's a beautiful thought. The fragmentation of the calendar doesn't weaken the bond. It simply requires the bond to be stronger, more flexible, and more resilient to span the gaps. The effort required to bridge the distance is the actual celebration.
Exactly. The effort is the proof of the love. So, as you go about your week, we invite you to consider your own family tree.
Take a look at it.
Think about the people you are connected to. How far do those roots stretch across the map? How many different calendars, time zones, and cultures are woven into your own history?
You might be surprised.
You might find that your own net of connection, the legacy of the people who raised you, is much wider and much more resilient than you ever realized.
Now the million-dollar question for Alex, Gia, Tara, Sara, Anjali, Mira, Alar, Mikul, Vikul, Sayura, Sanvi, Vikas, Kay, Eka, Prisha, and others whose names I cannot recall at the moment, grandchildren of Satish, Asha Desi, Chanchalji, Jaiminiji, Ramdas, Amsaji, Manormaji. How are you going to honor your father this Father's Day and every day? Affectionately, Yogi Anand.